I think we're live. Hey guys, it's Ben here from Second Dynasty. I am somewhat recovered from our launch last week, which is wonderful. We launched on Wednesday, Operation Maelstrom. We've already unlocked, I think, 8. We're about $20 off 9 stretch goals already, which is insane. We've hit over 15k euro. So if you are one of the awesome backers, thank you very much. If you're curious about that campaign, check out the link in the description, although I guess I can show you right here. This does translate it into crowns, but you can see here 15,489 euro, which is wonderful. And here are our stretch goals, which have been unlocked so far. And we've just opened things up too for some social stretch goals, and we're on our way. So yeah, hi to anyone that's joining us. Let's see, I will check the chat here. Hi, John. John is waving digitally. He's also on the lounge over there. Hey, Tamsin. Hey, Kathy, welcome. I assume we'll have a bit of a quiet one. Why are we doing it on a Thursday this week? The reason is simply that tomorrow is a national holiday. So it's Midsummer's Eve, which is a big Swedish tradition to have a somewhat pagan tradition that has continued even through Christian times, which celebrates the summer solstice, of course. And there are certain traditions that remain, like dancing around the midsummer pole, and which is a fertility symbol, you might say. Singing a song called Small Frogs, which is quite weird. And then usually you have a very nice lunch, and there's a lot of schnapps and other libations. So yes, it's a big day tomorrow. It's a time when you get together, meet friends and family, and sort of celebrate the wonderful, beautiful weather after the dark, dreary winter. So yeah, anyway, what are we going to look at today? I thought we'd just preview my Maya scene, and we can look at some of those stretch goals. I'm not going to show off everything. I will talk about these social stretch goals that I have on screen here. I'm not quite sure where my hand is in aspect to the rest of the sort of frame. Anyway, I'm in a funny place mentally. We've gotten to the point of the campaign where it's slowed down into those mid-campaign doldrums. Plenty of stuff to unlock. And most of this stuff is all ready to go. The plants and map is something that John actually made for the awesome scenery for our campaign. We have some alternative poses for our pilots and ground crew. Some new weapons. And maybe some other things if we keep up the comments, likes, subscriptions, shares, and whatnot. We posted an update recently, which we've pinned, which has all of the details. And again, if you want to get in on this, there is a link in the description to the video. And I see John has also posted it. Yes. All right, awesome. So yeah, guys, by all means, get in on the chat if you're joining us. Ask some questions. The social stretch goals themselves, I think they're fairly straightforward, right? Basically, we have a particular link to a particular Facebook post, a particular link to a particular YouTube video, and basically, if you go in and like those things, we tally up the likes and whatnot, and they get added to unlocking things, because the more that people sort of like engage with these things, the more visible it becomes, and that drives more people to our Kickstarter page, which means we potentially get more backers in the long run, which is great. I mean, we've got almost 250 now, and if we keep doing this sort of thing over the 21 days that we have left to go, maybe we can get to twice that, who knows, which just means there's a bunch more variants to be unlocked. I did put some out this morning. You can kind of see like the unlocked stretch goals at the top of the page, and if you scroll right down past the sort of items here, we get to the stretch goals we have unlocked. So we've got 1 to 185 scale miniatures, and Albin actually showed me the first prototype of these. So my microphone is on. I should have checked that before, because last time we did have John checked. Great. So let me switch to the close-up camera. Microphone is still on. Great. So yeah, Albin has actually test printed the Garou Zalg. It's in a clear resin. So this is also resin printed. Let's see if I can get the camera to focus on it. There we go. That's very nice. So you can kind of see that came out nice. It is quite large compared to our other 1 to 270 miniatures. And the reason for this is, if you look at the X-Wing game, which is our sort of golden standard for miniatures, the smaller craft like X-Wings and TIE Fighters are actually at a different scale, and they do vary quite a bit. The average scale of larger ships is 1 to 270, but like Hero Craft, about 1 to 180 and 185, which is what we're doing. And I think you can agree that sort of like, if this did not, if it was done any smaller, so it would probably be about 60% smaller than this, and you would just lose so much detail. So this works well too, because it's still on a 1-inch hex. Will we do other things that are smaller? It's kind of hard to say. Unless you've got a resin printer, it's really going to be tough. And you know, a part of the process that Albin's been working on, he actually goes on summer holidays after today, which is very exciting for him. And he's going to be back after the campaign when I'm on my summer holidays, and will be processing these miniatures, and also doing resin versions. So basically the resin versions are going to be simplified. We can't get all the mechanics with resin that we can with FDM printing. Like, for example, the spider crab, all those articulated arms. Resin is too brittle. It will break and snap after a single use, essentially. So we're doing sort of like a simplified version that prints better in fewer pieces as well. And those models then serve as sort of the basis for what becomes the miniature versions. So everything is sort of like cut down and scaled to a point. There's certain things, I don't know if you can see it or not, but there's like a blocker object in this turret. I was thinking of having a blocker one in here, but it wasn't necessary. And these are approximately 1/3 smaller than our regular ones. Right, I should probably be looking at the chat. John's talking a lot. Oh, he's saying I'm so nice, always giving credit, despite doing 88% of the work. We're only €11 now. That's insane. So yeah, we'll be probably updating soon. We also unlocked the stands. We showed those off in the last stream, I believe. They still need a bit of a pimping up, so they look cooler. For anyone wondering like what kind of look we're going for, like you could either print this in clear resin and kind of like the Garou Zalg that I showed you guys, or more likely I'm going to make it kind of like the arm. For anyone that's seen the Macross movie from 1984, I know that might not be a ton of people, but anyone who's been with me for a long time knows that that's one of my primary inspirations. They have this arm from the armor characters that launches the Valkyries, and it's got this cool striping and stuff, so I'm going to kind of try and do a homage to that. Then the next one we unlocked is the Firefly Swarm. I showed that off last week as well. It's just like a missile boat version of the Firefly with all the missiles. And we have the action poses for our pilots. We have some new missile racks. So if you went all in and got the missile pack, there's a ton of different missiles you can use these with now. We did add an additional missile in case you don't have those packs. If you've just got the fighters, these will be compatible. Then we did some rocket pods, and some of the reason for this is like I wanted to start doing, because I'm aware that there gets to be a point in a campaign where things slow down, and we've reached that point now. We've gone from dozens of pledges per day to just a handful, which is quite normal. But, you know, one way to keep momentum building is to do those social stretch goals I talked about. Another way I'm trying is these bonus promotions. So the idea is you want to keep people coming back to the page so that they can engage, write comments, show their excitement for things. I try to encourage it as much as possible, but like, honestly, like for example, we have a really healthy Discord. And if you just got that conversation that we have on a Discord and put it on the comment section instead, that would help drive up our figures, for example. So it's small things like just having the discussion, talking about a single miniature or something like that, and you know, writing down some thoughts or positive or negative, whatever. All of that sort of drives up productivity, or not productivity, but like visibility is the word I'm looking for. It's a Thursday, but it feels like a Friday. So yes, the other way that I wanted to create additional promotion was to do a collaboration. Over the course of the campaign, we have 4 Mondays, and each of those Mondays we're going to have a collaboration with 4 different artists that we've worked with before. The first week, my mate Papsicles, he has a Frontier launching on the 27th of June, which is cyberpunk themed, so as a cross promotion for that, he has given us a free miniature. And I also did a cyberpunk themed item that will be used as a cross promotion when his campaign goes live, and that is the Parasite drone. And this is what we have here in Maya. So it's basically a version of the Hornet, which is armed to the teeth and has replaced the cockpit with I keep forgetting to turn that off. Let's see, I can just close that window there, and Dropbox is once again needs to be paused as well. Let's see, snooze for an hour, that should do it. Alright, sorry for those interruptions. So yeah, I think I have shown this off before. I'm not sure. So yeah, this is just like shows how we can combine all of these systems. And actually we printed out a version which is over on the table there. I think I showed that off too. Did I show off the Parasite last week?
Yeah.
I don't think I have.
Maybe you didn't.
Maybe I didn't, says the mysterious voice off camera. So yeah, I will show that. Yeah, that's it.
So many ships.
There are so many ships. Alright, let's see. Let's get to close-up mode. And this is kind of like we're getting to the point where things are refined now. So this is the Parasite drone. You can see the weapon systems. We've got some new rocket launchers from that stretch goal. We've got missiles. The missiles detach. So they fire off. Very cool. The fan spins if you want it to. Not a whole heap, but enough. And yeah, I'm really happy with this design. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea because it's very Bubblegum Crisis, which is the inspiration for it. But I thought that would fit in very, very well with the theme of Papsicle's campaign. And then over the coming 4 weeks, we're going to have collaborations, not in any specific order, with Kyoshinico, That Blasted Summer Flange, and Games Art by Philip. So yeah, I'm looking forward to having those come out on Mondays. Did you have something to say, John? Mm-mm. Okay. Alright, so let's see. But that's not all. We have our very, very messy scene. You can see some of the craft. If you've been with us for a while, you'll have noticed. Here is the Firefly Swarm variant that I was talking about. I still want to add some armor to it before we get the final release, just because like it feels a little bit cheap just adding these missile launchers and that's it. Like, I mean, there are parts exchanged and changed. This will be a lot better than the regular version, I guess. Not better, but more heavily armed is the word I'm looking for. But you might notice a little bit further down our upcoming goals. The one that we're about to release is the Miniatures 2, which is just the other 4 base ships they're going to release. And then after that, we have a much larger hop. Now, a part of this is because the social goals hopefully will unlock during the time, so you guys will feel like there's something happening, a reason to check back, right? But yeah, the next one we're going to look at is, of course, I want there to be a variant of every ship, ship type. So, okay, the Stinger and the Hornet were based on the same platform. So the third variant, or variation of that, is the Scorpion gunship. In the lore, I've mentioned the fact that the Stinger was in an awkward place because it was a bit too heavy for police operations, a bit too light for military operations. So then that's how we get the Hornet, which is the police interceptor, which is lighter. And then we get the Scorpion gunship, which is kind of like inspired by an attack helicopter crossed with the dropship from Aliens. The Cheyenne? Yeah, I think it's called the Cheyenne. So I just wanted to show off that one, because I think it's quite cool. Let's isolate this so we can focus on it and see it completely. So again, this is sort of like even more heavily armed than the drone that we just looked at. It also has a twin cockpit. And of course, this cockpit is compatible not only with other versions of the Stinger, but also the heavy fighter that we had previously. I can briefly show that off. So this is the heavy fighter I was talking about. I think there's a couple of items hiding in front of it, but this was the original twin-seater. It's very, very long. Doesn't feel like it fits on an attack helicopter. And then we have the more compact. The fan blade is actually enlarged. Quite a bit larger than the original. And then the Stinger didn't actually have a landing gear, so I've added one now. It is a bit longer. I'm not entirely sure how it's going to fit together, but I don't think it'll be too much of a challenge. And yeah, you did see the drone in last week's vid. Yeah, okay, cool. And of course, you would have seen pictures of this perhaps on our Discord if you follow us regularly there. Of course, nothing beats actually seeing it live in Maya, where you can see it from multiple angles and appreciate the work that's gone into it. So yeah, I really like this. I don't know if it's the final version. I went with this nice sort of greenish color to emphasize its military use. I started this. We did get a little bit of community feedback. Hey Rutger, on this one, because and this is a reason to join our Discord, because when I'm throwing out ideas, originally we had this missile launcher which was at a normal sort of 90-degree. That's not a great illustration, but yeah, imagine if it was like look like this instead, which isn't that bad, but I think the angled version looks so much cooler, and that's kind of like based on feedback from you guys. I was thinking of doing a few other things that you could do to shake this up, like just having wings here instead, for example. So you could use other parts to achieve this, maybe. But yeah, I'm happy with the way it's turned out. So I spent a little bit of time on that. But then, is that cockpit interchangeable, or it would make for a good trainer variant? Yes, it will work on the Stinger. It will work on the Hornet. And it will, insofar as the Parasite is, I mean the whole thing with the Parasite is it has an alternative cockpit that's more drone-like and shorter. So yes, it works for all of them. So this also has a little bit of extra. If we just isolate it, it has 2 slots here for the open lock clip, so you can properly attach the wings. It'll be slightly more stable than the Stinger. You can kind of see the wings are slightly further forward too, See how they're one clip back on the Stinger. And of course, you don't have to put the missile launchers here. These will connect in to the wings there and need to be properly shaped. But yeah, so that's where we're at. Let me get a mouthful of water here. Oh, you hadn't seen the Parasite? We can just zoom in on it a little bit there for Rutger's appreciation. This green triangle thing was actually I was doing the rocket pod, so I was looking at exploring alternative shapes that were maybe a little bit more sci-fi, but so yeah, there you go. We've got a very large scene, very, very busy. The other thing that I did this week, and has been updated, but I haven't sent out any news yet, is I went back through all of these old Starfighter 1 and 2 parts and took the wings, and we have added the missile ports. So you can mount those missile racks on your older Starfighters. This is a free update. So if you have Starfighters 1 or 2, or both, you can get those parts. And also if you have the individual fighters, they're not attached to these versions yet. And on the tribes we have discussed, and I think the last time we looked at it, the Starfire was winning the poll, right?
Fury moved ahead, and then.
I haven't looked at it for a while, but yeah, we have a poll on the tribes between this vehicle and this vehicle as to which will get a Arrow Mark II update. Because the Arrow Mark II is this one. We swapped out the guns for missile launchers. We put some missile launchers on the bottom. Made this I feel a lot more wing commandery. It still has like a more Star Warsy feel as a craft overall, but the missiles are what kind of makes it wing commander to me. Okay, the Starfire is winning again. Yeah, so that's our cross wing. So we'll give the wings a bit more of a pimp, I guess. Flash it up a bit and maybe look at mechanically making them open and close. Find a solution for a landing gear, for example. Those things would be nice. So yeah, this is what we've been up to, making sure that like the heavy fighter already had a bunch of missiles on it, right? This is the old style missiles with the hooks. It had 6 on the bottom, but now you could just absolutely fill those wings with missiles. Which is how it should be when you've got something this big and heavy. So yeah, lots and lots of stuff going on there. But I just want to take a moment to talk about the psychology of running a campaign. I know that Kathy is here, knows about this. I know that John knows about this, having run Frontier. There is this thing with Kickstarter where it feels like you've got such momentum on day one, especially if you can build a huge mailing list. And then all of a sudden it dies off and it feels like nothing's moving. Now, I've done more than 10 crowdfunding campaigns in the last 6 or 7 years. But every time there's still this point where you get, I call it the campaign doldrums, a sort of depression of sorts, a hopelessness, a feeling like you're not reaching your full potential, that not enough people can see your work, that you're losing momentum. And this, as a creator and as someone who also relies on the funding coming in these surges, like we've been a lot better. This is why we've engaged with tribes, where we've built up at tribes over the last 15 months or so, to create a way of sort of stabilizing our income. But like, it feels sometimes like we put all our eggs in one basket, and you're so reliant on the funding. The money's already been spent before you get it anyway, because that's what you basically finance the next project off the proceeds from the one before, and it's just it affects my mental state, you could say. And I've been fine about it. I'll be fine about it tomorrow, I think. But there was just something that hit this morning where I came into work and I was just like, I don't want to look at this until Monday. Now, when you're running a campaign, that's actually not a great thing, because ideally you should be trying to present this in new forums, in new social media posts and whatnot, and it often feels like sometimes you guys that are regulars here on the stream know about all the work that goes into all of these things, that it takes a long period of time. You see what we can achieve in the short space of an hour a week, and some days we come very far and other days we don't come very far at all. And creative work where you've got to visualize something and bring it to life, a lot of it is up in your head, and then a lot of it is problem solving, how you're going to get it from your head to the digital space. And this requires so much mental processing. I used to love dungeon mastering D&D and other role-playing games, and I would put all my creative energies into these campaigns, creating worlds, especially Ravenloft, where I would really try to build up the atmosphere and put a lot of work in between gaming sessions, so that it would be the greatest experience for the players and whatnot. And since I've started focusing on, I love making spaceships and all of that, but my creative energy is completely gone now. I can't easily pick up a role-playing game and then run it, because I just feel creatively tapped out. And when you run a campaign, it gets even worse sometimes, because you actually spend all of this time building up all of the stuff, building up all of the stuff, building up all of the stuff. I've done this like 10 times now, and I know every time, no matter how hard I try, I'm not prepared when launch comes. I don't have all the materials in place. I don't have everything there to make the best impression possible. And usually you can get that impression, like in a week or so, you'll be able to look at the campaign page and it'll look so much better than it does now. But that's the first impression people should have got when they first visited the page, because they might be missing out. And we're so niche. You have to be interested in sci-fi. It's not for a particular game. You have to be interested in 3D printing and tabletop. This is niche of a niche of a niche. And, so every single backer really makes a difference to keep us in business, essentially. And a part of that too is I've probably grown my business a little bit more. We get by, but it's still a struggle. So you get to this point in the campaign where technically you should be there, pushing things out, doing the uncomfortable promotion that I know many of us creators hate doing. It's almost like if you think you're good at something and you want to promote it, it's like you're a fake or something, right? Imposter syndrome, that sort of thing. And so, yeah, I've just reached this point, which I know, if I take a step back in my head, I know that this is one of those things where it will pass. Don't get caught up in it. Don't try to bring your sour mood into a different situation. Try not to bring it home with you. But it's okay to have a couple of days every now and then where you just don't feel it. But it's one of those things. And today it's affecting me. So what I was trying to get to with all of this, and I'm sure you guys probably have some comments on this that I should probably read, but I just got to a point where I was a little bit fed up with Operation Maelstrom. Not because I'm not proud of the work that I've done, but we have enough stretch goals and things planned to keep us going for a while. What am I supposed to do today? I don't know. I know, it's just sitting this morning and talking to John, and I was thinking about our next project and how really, we should almost already have up a Kickstarter preview page. It should not be out a month before. It should be out 3 months before. You should be fully prepared with everything filmed and ready to go. And that's very hard to accomplish. So, after talking this morning to my colleagues, I'm just like, okay, today I'm gonna finish rendering the gunship, and then I'm gonna work on something else. So I have my modular cutter scene that I started opening up, just planning out at the planning stages. But let's see. I get the loss of momentum feeling. I know you do, Kathy. I know you do. And it can be quite stressful. But so is like the feeling that you're missing out. And quite often I spend a lot of money too on marketing and that sort of thing. And it can feel like you're spending money, but you're not getting a return on it. It's tricky. I feel the pain with running a campaign. It's hard trying to reach an audience. Yes, it is. But, the thing is you have to be proactive, and that in itself drains even more energy. Ideally, I know what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be going to different forums and, saying, hey, this project exists. Hi, I made this, blah, blah, blah. Ideally, what you should be doing is doing this 3 to 6 months beforehand. Like, if there was a way I could convert these live streams into something that you could post on relevant forums every now and then, just to show the work in progress, that's when you get people interested in. And I'd wager a bet that the people that come back here week after week are actually some of the most loyal backers I have, that just, instant back, and I'm really thankful and grateful that there are people like you guys. It's awesome. Stormy Smith says 2 basic types of shoppers: the impulse or early in type, and the overthinker last second type. The middle section is totally nerve-wracking. Yeah. Basically, you're kind of relying, I think, on people that missed the initial surge. And if you can create enough value for money, like I think of my backer kind of the way I'm a super backer on Kickstarter. I've backed, well, somewhere between 130 and 160 campaigns. I'm not entirely sure. It's a bad habit, especially when you can claim it as a business expense. Market research, cross promotion, whatever. So it is like one of those things where you can really you can really get bogged down in the details. And this is one of the things too, like part of the issue is you psych yourself out. And even though I know better, I've got the experiences. But you never know quite what you've done wrong, because the market changes. People might not have as much money as they want. Maybe people just aren't in love with the designs the same way that they are with a larger ship. Maybe they're more excited about a larger ship. And I mean, overall, this campaign is going to be successful. And I know logically what to expect at this point when the 21 days are done. But you just never know how things are going to go, and this is the point where you second guess yourself, I guess. Let's see. Your pages. Let's see. I think I skipped ahead here. I find it easier than a monthly grind so far to do campaigns. Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Honestly, I don't know if we'd have the tribes the same way that we do if it wasn't for Albin and John sort of like sharing the load, like doing vehicles every now and then, so it's not me all of the time doing everything. Let's see, I find chatting, we should come up with ship stats for a bunch of different games that would promote the ships to a bunch of different audiences and at least tick one of the boxes. Yeah, or maybe technically what I should be doing is like looking at what games are being played and probably making some kind of galaxy far, far away theme ships would probably sell better. I don't know, but then part of the reason why I try and get away from those things in the first place is because I really get fed up with the armchair lawyers that like to tell me how much Disney's going to sue the pants off me or whatnot. And, you know, I know they're not, but I don't know. Let's see. I find chatting to you really buoys me up. I find the same thing, Cafe, honestly. Like this, I'm saying these things because I know there's a couple of creators in the chat that have been in a similar position. Also, by talking about these things, you can kind of like talk through it yourself, see the logical side of things, and then tomorrow, like I might be feeling shit today, but tomorrow I might wake up feeling like, hey, you know, we've got 15 grand in there. And also, like, you know, the crown is very, very weak at the moment, so that's significantly more money this time around than what it would have been a year ago. So, you know, what we need to get our internal goals is maybe less because the euro is so strong and the dollar is so strong and the krona is so weak. Let's see. Which page is up? Do you mean your post-campaign page? Rutger, I agree with getting some stats like the X-Wing stats could be good. Yeah, that could be good for the starfighters in particular, actually. Or adapt other game mechanics. Battlestar Galactica miniatures. It had an amazing system. I haven't actually heard about that one. And then, yeah, we get to the point where it's like, woo, the cutter. So you kind of get the Traveller fans popping up here and you can tell who's who. I think for the 28mm ships, the game mechanics for snap ship tactics could work well. Don't know about that one either. I think you need to widen the engine module on the modular cutter just so it doesn't get stuck anywhere. There's a lot to be said about this model. I know we've had a static picture for a while, but you should not consider this anything more than a sketch. And there are a couple of reasons for this. I have lots of reference documents open. There are lots of variants. I need to talk to my Traveller guys. And I'd like to make something more along the lines of the GURPS version here, for example. I'll just leave that on for a second. So from a creator standpoint, is it better to have backers at the start, middle, or end? Should I wait if I know I'll back anyways? It's better to do... I would... Look, the thing with Kickstarter is you can always change your mind. So the more people that back in the beginning, the more momentum builds up, and really it prolongs the time when the Kickstarter algorithm shows your campaign at the top of its category, or near enough to the top of the category that people that are just browsing might find it. So it is better to do sooner rather than later. But from my own perspective, it's like, you know, I sometimes also back last minute when I can see all of the stretch goals that have been unlocked. But we're also at a point where you can see a bunch of different stretch goals that have been unlocked, and we're about to do another one very, very soon. Let's see. So from creator standpoints, that's the one I read first, right? Yep. To be honest, I prefer Ben Originals. What I'm trying to think about with this ship is, how can I make it a Ben Original? Like, this is definitely a much better version of, let's be honest, a very suggestive, quite simplistic design. From what I've read and are reading about the Modular Cutter, it's a very confused ship. I thought this was going to be easy. But apparently it's not. Apparently it's going to be a little bit harder because essentially all the various different editions have different takes on the ship. Some are 4 grid wide, some are 3, some have 2 levels, some are single levels. All of them are a bit of a TARDIS, where the interior space, it's like a scout ship situation all over again. And I've got to be honest, there's a part of me that's just like, we're not doing this again. We're not going to try and match up to these deck plans that don't make sense in 3D. And I'm wondering if the way to go is to just say, here's the spirit of the Modular Cutter. This is my interpretation. The same way as, like, you can see a Rob Caswell interpretation of the Type S from Classic Traveler, for example. You see the art changing. Let's see. The new lava campaign page. That's the right way to go, Kathy. That's the right way to go. There are plenty of typical content creators. The unique hybrid stuff here is what draws me in the first place. Oh, thank you, Stormy. Welcome too. I'm not sure if I've seen you around the chats before. And then yes, some more interesting interpretation. I'm guessing that's agreeing with this version. I'm not entirely sure if this is a modular cutter or one of its many, many variants. But the idea of like switching out the nose is appealing to me, like as that being an option. But the interior kind of needs to make sense as well, and you want your miniatures to fit. You're gonna have this curved hull. It's very annoying for fitting things. But the actual concept of having different modules lends itself perfectly to having a campaign with stretch goals or that sort of thing. Oh, great! The 15,500 euro stretch goal is unlocked! Yay! Thank you to whoever that was. That probably is in the chat. Was it Rutger? Yes. Thank you, Rutger. Number 252. Unique stuff is a double-edged sword. You have a smaller, more dedicated audience, I think. Making a derivative design appeals to a broader audience. I agree that blasted Camouflage. However, I think my designs still can fit into a broader range of games. Like, they're still generic enough that they can fit into, a Traveler game, or and they're like, I know you specifically are focused on non-humanoid alien races, which there are very, very few of. However, I don't know how it is for other people, but I kind of feel like if I'm in, say, for example, Traveler, it would be much easier to, say, use one of my other ships in the Traveler universe and convert it than it would to convert a new alien race, because the ship doesn't impact the lore the same way that a new alien race would. I think maybe if it was more focused on, like, alien wildlife rather than intelligent creatures, it could be maybe a slightly easier sell. I'm not sure. I'm just considering things here. I guess just get tired of the 50th version of the Falcon. Right, okay, yeah. But are those Falcons in 28mm or 35 or like fully detailed interiors? I haven't seen that many. And I still think like you can make a new ship that is my own design but also fits in with a particular universe. It's just a matter of like figuring out what the angle is. And then honestly, I'm not sure how Traveler my ships honestly are. The deck plans obviously try to follow them, but the engines don't really reflect what grav plating does. Let's see, with a 2-level module it might be easily possible to do a round and benefited octagonal version. Look, Alex, cool idea, but the big problem with the modular cutter is it's got to fit into the back of a mercenary cruiser. Like, it has to fit a certain size. And just that in itself is like, okay, are we going to design it that way, or are we just going to hand wave away that possibility? Because the biggest problem with Traveler ship designs is the walls are paper thin. They're literally just as wide as, the width of a pen tip. Let's see. Oh snap, we unlocked the tactical miniatures. Yes, we did. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely love the original designs. Thank you. Yes, I don't think you should be tied too tightly to any Traveler drawing. Any of the stock ships is supposed to have been built for centuries across hundreds of worlds. Yes, that's true. It's true. So I think the thing is, the big blocker for me mentally is going to be like, am I trying to make a ship that's going to fit into some kind of cradle to simulate, the interior plans of, say, a mercenary cruiser? Or do we just make something and forget about that aspect? Forget about the... Because one thing... And it's the same kind of thing that bothers me, that leads me to, talk about all this, the mental challenges of the campaigning doldrums, or feeling like you're not getting enough done, or that, oh, my work is not good enough to speak for itself, or I'm not getting it out there enough, or is it the market? You second guess and question yourself. I think a lot of the time in designing too, it's like my hang-ups of like, well, no, this has to fit this situation and that situation. It can prevent you from getting where you need to go. John has been, for example, super effective in designing some new fighters. Now, he has gone in a direction that I wouldn't necessarily have done if I was in the pilot seat, so to speak. But there's a very, very effective way of working. So the craft that he's worked on have been created very quickly. So there's something to be said for like just doing a rough sketch and seeing where it goes, but like he had a very structured approach of saying, okay, I'm going to work on this part for this amount of time, which is extremely effective, but obviously not as refined as if you're working weeks or months on something.
It's an approach that gets you a product. It doesn't get you a good one necessarily, but it gets you a product.
Well, I think we're starting off pretty well anyway with Epsilon, but so yeah, I think whoops, wrong Maya scene again. So what I need to do is sort of lay out a standard module, figure out this walkway thing. It kind of also needs to be bigger too, because you want to be able to get some crawling miniatures into it, really. So I don't know. It all depends how people use it. Maybe this doesn't need to be so big. Maybe you lift off the top and there's just like basically the floor tiles left and it's flat, and you get the impression of where the floor tiles are, and you can just move the miniatures on top. Like I'm trying to think practically, how would you use this at the game table? And then I don't go and do it myself. So I've completely thought about that, and I have a very small niche, but I need to branch out. I focus on the sentient because of the lack of them. Well, yeah, I mean, that's great, but have you considered also if you do some things a little bit more generic, you might have then the resources to be able to put more focus on those things? I've always tried to approach my work where it's like, okay, this is actually a perfect example. The Modular Cutter, and now, no offense to Traveller fans, no offense to Mark Miller, no offense to people that find these aesthetics appealing. To me, this thing looks... I don't think I even need to explain what this thing looks like. So, various different objects that are inserted in various different cavities, we could say. Take your pick. And it's like, many of my ships actually have a quite similar shape. Really. Scout Ship Beta kind of also looks like a certain bodily organ of the male variety. But you can...
Where are you going with this?
I don't know, the hand gestures are a bit of a worry. I'm hoping this isn't on camera. But you can take a different approach to sort of like draw the eye away from drawing those comparisons. To the point, we want to get this from a point where you're like, this is a sex toy or this is a giant dick. And get it to the point of where it's like, this kind of looks like, rather than, far more suggestive, right? And I think, this design here has kind of you don't want to end up with a Jeff Bezos rocket that looks like it came from Austin Powers 2. This is, something that looks more manageable. And part of the reason that it does, let's just look at that. One, they've elongated the cockpit out. It kind of looks like if you just look at the cockpit there, it reminds me a hell of a lot of the Beowulf cockpit. They have this segregation with the module here behind too. So you can see the split very clearly. It sort of like has this indentation. It breaks up that shape. And they've done it in such a way that they haven't broken it up like there'd be a big difference between if we broke up the shape here, right, and back here. Because doing it here kind of makes this look like a tip of something. And if it was just a bit longer and a bit more pointy, you're kind of taking the suggestiveness out of that object. This looks more like a horizontal NASA rocket in certain ways, you know. And this is a much cooler design, I feel, than the other iterations that we've seen. Let's see. Does it even need a crawl space? Yes, it does. That's how you get from the front to the back of the ship if you've got cargo on it. And John wanted to thank Kathy for complimenting the globule. The globule's very cool too. We could actually show the globule.
We could.
Yeah. Let's see, because we've shown...
It even has the captain in it right now.
Yes, it does. Yeah. A ghostly captain. So let's close up and go on, John.
Oh dear.
Oh, no.
He
Just
fell.
tilt him.
No, the thing is just ramping. Whoa. Okay. Anyway, the globiole. Oh, you want to show it off now?
Yeah, I can show it off if you
Yes.
want. It has a...
Just throw
What's
him out.
going on with him?
Just let him fall out. Just like shake him out.
Captain Ben is drunk, but this ship has been designed for drunk pilots. I think that's an honest assessment, right?
Yes.
It has these very cool folding landing gear, right? I'm probably not doing this right.
You did it right.
So they fold up underneath.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice. The engines work like this. This is all the engines it has. It's really made like a kind of like... almost like a Disney tourist module.
Yes.
Uh,
That's the idea.
It has this very cool ramp door at the back, and it pulls out. I'm not showing this very well. It pulls out. Oh, no, I took it all out.
It's okay.
So it pulls out and then folds, which is something I'm going to need to use, actually, on the modular cutter, because it has this curved side here. You can kind of see this curved door. So you want to be able to pull out and then fold. And then this folds out even more. And then, I don't know if we can see that, John hid a logo in there for Second Dynasty. If I put this in front of my face, there we go. Very nice. And he made this cool logo for items that are not technically Ben designed, but that's a globule. That's a couple of months out, right?
It's not finished being tested. It'll be released August.
Captain Ben's drunk. All right, there we go. Thank you, John, for showing that off. So yeah, we're preparing ahead of time because, as mentioned, Albon goes on summer holidays today, and when he gets back in 4 weeks, I'm going on holidays. At least a lot somewhere in between there. So we're kind of like trying to prepare ahead of time. So let's see. The Epsilon is cool too. Yeah, Cassie, you test printed that. Let's see. A break in the shape could be like a dockable module that can be switched out as needed. Absolutely, and actually I can anticipate us having like a classic cockpit style as one option. But you know, because of the issue with the thickness of the walls and whatnot, there has to be some creative choices made that will necessitate, you know, lengthening of the ship, for example. Lengthening I'm not as worried about. What's the problem with that? You got your hypothetical mercenary cruiser, which we would only ever represent with a sort of cradle, right? But then the question is, like, at what level is the airlock? If you have the split level where it's like 50% through, like here we've done the cockpit so that the cockpit level, at least the floor is the middle 2 inches, and I think Mark Miller last, this was the impression I was left with a central corridor, but a lot of deck plans split this up into 2 levels, and it could work, but it would be far, far, far more cramped than shown on the deck plans. And the GURP stuff I've looked at is just like, well, how can this be 4.5 meters wide? It has to be wider than that. So yeah. Let's see. Epsilon is cool too. My reasoning behind not needing a crawl space is that the cutters aren't intended for prolonged flights, so access isn't routinely needed. Any maintenance would be done on ship or in port. I mean, possibly. possibly, but I'm trying to like with the Odyssey. I tried to think about playability, and I think it would increase the playability to have that connection in place, and there needs to be a connection from front to back so that the module can attach. And this is also what speaks to, I've seen some versions where it juts out at the top, and other versions where it's flat. But somehow there has to be a connector here, which also interferes with, how the modules would look. Let's see. I love all the neat design tricks in the globule. I have to agree, John's a master at figuring out that sort of stuff. He loves doing the mechanics of things. He's also designing a cool alternative to the open lock clip, which is much smaller. And one of the reasons for that is also one of the design challenges of this ship is going to be, where do we put the open lock clips? Because ideally when you have a cylindrical shape, you don't just want to have the clips at the bottom, you want to have some kind of supports. And that's the other thing too, that if we use support rods, they kind of need to be up the top here. So we'll see how it works in practice. It will be a much lighter ship. So what is this, like 10 centimeters wide, is that right? 4 inches, yes. By maybe 60, so it's quite long, but thin and small in that sense, and quite a simple shape. So, sorry, will the pinnace be very? Will the pinnace be? What will it be? Sorry. Will there be a pinnace version? I mean, obviously, if we do the modular cutter, the reason I'm choosing it is to do pinnaces and whatnot. But Dalton has told me that the widths of these things are all messed up in the deck plans. They're all over the place, but technically that the pinnace should be the same width as a modular cutter and vice versa. Now, what that is, I don't know, but I think it's 4 inches. As in 4.5 meters at scale, which would be 4 squares, which are 1 inch, which is why I'm saying 4 inches. What about doing a ventral spine / crawl space rather than a dorsal, allowing for a more literal dropping in a module? I mean, that would work practically for us as a model to hold things together, but as a ship design, you can't then use that ship as a carryall. So you can't actually go land on a planet, drop a module, and go back into space. Because you have to get that module off rather than just detaching it. So it's one of those form over function things. Let's see, how big will the pinnace be? But you just answered. Okay, great. Let's see. It doesn't need to be a crawl space. I should be saying who's saying these. Tamsin is saying to that blasted 7 flange. That there doesn't need to be a crawl space. A beam or a partial sleeve connecting cockpit to drive section will work just as well, but lacks the play option. Yeah, I agree with that, and that's one way to go too. And it could actually make it all look tighter, but the other thing too is that in the maps, like this is 1.5 meters wide. In the maps, it's probably closer to 75 centimeters, and there's an actual crawl space. But in practice, yeah, what are we going to do? It's like you have a map, you need to use it in a certain way. You won't be able to get miniature bases in if the walls are there. The solution could be doing a version without walls. So it's basically flat. We did that with the crawl spaces originally in Starship 1 as well. We did a flat version because we knew we'd have this issue. But I don't know how popular it was. I think most people just want to build it out and actually see it. You can always just put the miniature on top and pretend it's crawling. It's just got to represent the character and where they are, right? It doesn't need to be perfect. And let's see. What about no air ducts but have few modules with an airlock on either side? That way the playability is preserved. I mean the airlock's there anyway. That's built into the base design. They've designed it that way. Let's see. Kathy says, I thought you didn't want it associated with a certain male appendage. Pinnace sounds like a euphemism. It does. I didn't name it. And to be fair, that is a type of boat or ship. I'm not entirely sure about the size of a pinnace. Penis. Whatever. Let's see. Do you have plans for different cargo mods, aka different insides? Yes. That would be the one all ones. Any plans for a Zodani like Trooper, like you did with Imperial Marines? See, I always thought of, like, if Traveller was successful, we would get there. And... yeah, Traveller is not successful for us. It's break even. And so then it becomes about passion, and it's like, do I have equal passion for Traveller as I have for creating my own ships? No. The license goes out next year. I don't think it would be too much trouble to renew that and keep the ships that we have. Maybe the Modular Cutter is popular enough that sold side by side with our old ships in the next Kickstarter campaign, it's enough to say, hey, maybe we do continue doing Traveller stuff. But honestly, and this is a thought I'll have to leave you guys with, this is possibly the last Traveller Kickstarter campaign that we're going to do. And it could be worth thinking about doing a couple of miniatures so that there are options for those more unique items like Sodani Troopers that you won't find anywhere else. But when we do miniatures, because we don't do them in-house, we have to hire sculptors. So, you know, the amount of miniatures that we have affects, you know, the overheads that we have. We're already lost money on the Beowulf. So it's a tough call. It really is a tough call. I think the Modular Cutter will be worth it because there's so many variants. But that's where we're at. I'm trying to be honest. We may yet, you know, see sales of the deck plans. They're not quite fully matured yet. But yeah, that's where we're at. It's just, unfortunately, the 3D work, at least to the quality that we do it, requires so much time and energy to do. And then, personally, I find, like, if we were designing Traveller adjacent ships, like using their deck plan system, but scratch building our own ships so that they made more sense, that would be far more appealing to me in many ways, because people don't need to necessarily know that it's Traveller. But to fit with classic designs that don't work in 3D can be quite frustrating. Anyway, I guess we've been a little bit more philosophical today, talking about, you know, the stuff behind the scenes, a little bit extra, not actually showing all that much work, but more about the thought processes that go into things. I want to thank again everyone who has backed Operation Maelstrom. Check it out. The link is in both the chat. I think maybe John can add it to the chat again a second time. It is in the video description as well if you're joining us later. Check it out if you haven't. And if you guys haven't seen the update on the social stretch goals, please have a look. Follow the links and the posts, like, subscribe, and so on and so forth. And we get even more goodies to you guys during the time. So I will see you guys next week. Will be Sans Albin, although I guess he went down to the dungeon as soon as we started streaming today, so we missed him. He's in the kitchen now. Albin, come and wave. Let's wish Albin a happy holidays.
Good riddance.
See ya. All right, guys. Thanks for joining us. See you guys.